Je me demande parfois si je t'aime. C'est bizarre. Il ne vous est rien arrivé de particulier? Un événement traumatique, un choc émotionnel?
Hello and welcome to our French cinema show on Arts 24. This week we'll be looking at 4 films that give 4 very different visions of France, from the working class streets of Marseille to the gilded salons of Paris. And for that, I'm joined by our film critic Manon Kerjean from Lost in Translation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Manon, let's start with the streets of Marseille in La Petite Dernière, also known as The Little Sister. It's the latest film by Afsia Erzi. It was in competition at this year's Cannes Film Festival, where it won both the Best Actress Award for Nadia Melliti and the Queer Palm.
Yes, it's her first appearance on the big screen, and she plays Fatima, a young Muslim woman from the suburbs of Marseille who's trying to reconcile her faith, her family, and her attraction to women. And it's based on the acclaimed autobiographical novel by Fatima Das, and it's one of a few French films to portray queer identity from within an immigrant working class background. Here is a glimpse.
L'instinct de l'homme, c'est d'être attiré par les femmes, et l'instinct des femmes, c'est d'être attiré par les hommes.
C'est Idal, on se la pédale, votre copine la lesbienne là. Ça fait comme un garçon.
Oh, j'adore, t'es tout timide. C'est quoi, un cœur brisé, c'est quoi? Moi, je te le recoue ton cœur, moi. Je sais ce que c'est de pas s'assumer, pas être bien dans sa peau, tout ça, mais à un moment, faut vivre, non?
Looks quite incredible. Now, stories like this one are rarely seen in French cinema. Back in May, France 24's culture editor Louise Dupont spoke to Afsia Erzi and Nadia Melliti during the Cannes Film Festival. Take a look.
The subject made some people feel uncomfortable. They didn't tell me directly, but I understood. They made it clear to me. But that didn't stop me from fighting to get the film made, and it made me want to do it even more. Precisely because it's not a character we're used to seeing in films.
On the contrary, it made me want to play her because she's a very strong character who is determined in her decision-making and in what she goes through. For me, it was an honor to represent this character and bring her to Cannes.
So, Manon, as we saw there, it was no easy feat getting this film made. What did you make of it?
I really, really loved the film. I couldn't stop crying during the screening in Cannes. What gives the film its strength is its sense of truth. Erzi shot with a handheld camera close to faces and gestures, inspired by filmmakers like the Dardenne brothers or Ken Loach. She said she immediately connected with the story. She grew up in a similar environment in Marseille, and she wanted to portray that world from the inside without cliches. It reminded me a bit of Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, but set under the Marseille sun. It has that same mix of rebellion and affection. So this is Erzi's third film behind the camera, but she played in many films as an actress. And if you're in Paris at the end of the month, the Cinémathèque Française is doing a retrospective of her work until November 2nd.
Okay, good to know. Now, next up, François Ozon's bold adaptation of Albert Camus' literary masterpiece, LÉtranger, or The Stranger. The film premiered at the Venice Film Festival this year, and since it has traveled the globe from Busan to San Sebastian. The film stars Benjamin Voisin as Meursault, a settler in French Algeria who kills an Arab man on a beach in Algiers. He then faces trial, but it's more an indictment on his indifference than it is so much about his crimes. Why was this film such a gamble?
While adapting Camus is no small task, The Stranger is one of the most widely read French novels in the world, with more than 10 million copies sold, yet very few directors have dared to take it on. The last major version was by Italian master Visconti in 1967, starring Marcello Mastroianni and Anna Carina. But here, Ozon brings a very different sensibility, quite modern in its moral ambiguity, but also timeless because it's filmed entirely in black and white, both for aesthetic and budget reasons. Here is a look.
D'abord, regrettez-vous votre acte?
Pourquoi étiez-vous armé d'un revolver? Et pourquoi revenir vers cet endroit précisément?
Moi aussi, je me demande parfois si je t'aime. T'es bizarre, pas comme les autres.
Monsieur le Président, Meursault est innocent.
C'était un accident?
Maman disait souvent qu'on n'est jamais tout à fait malheureux.
Now, Camus' novel, as we know, is very much tied to Algeria and French colonial history, and depicting this comes with its own challenges, I guess. How does he handle that part of the story?
He made an interesting choice. The film was shot not in Algeria, but in Morocco, which gives it a kind of dreamlike atmosphere rather than a strict historical realism. There's also a personal connection. Ozon's grandfather once lived in Algeria, so in a way, the director is reconnecting with his own family history.
So using Camus to reconnect with his family. Well, how does the film differ then from the book?
Well, Ozon decided to expand the roles of two female characters who were barely developed in the book, and here they add emotional depth and a modern perspective. And some critics compared it to The Trial by Orson Welles, and I can see that because it feels like a dream that slowly becomes a nightmare.
Okay, so he sort of manages to make philosophy cinematic, which I guess is not an easy thing to do. Let's look at something completely different now, but maybe familiar for film lovers. The Dutch-born French filmmaker Jan Koenen's new film, LHommeQuiRétrécit, or The Shrinking Man.
Yes, it is a loose reinterpretation of the 1957 American sci-fi classic, The Incredible Shrinking Man. And this version is quite ambitious. It was initiated by Oscar-winning actor Jean Dujardin, who also stars in the film. He said he had been dreaming of revisiting the story from a European point of view for years.
And just like in the 1956 book, it's about a man whose body mysteriously begins to shrink after being exposed to a strange cloud. Now, as his body diminishes, his perception of the world and of himself expands. It's both spectacular and philosophical, blending special effects with spiritualism. Take a look.
Il ne vous est rien arrivé de particulier? Un événement traumatique, un choc émotionnel?
Avec nous, Paul?
1,76. Tu rigoles?
On se tasse tous un peu avec l'âge, tu sais, c'est normal.
De 4 cm?
Now, beyond the science fiction premise, it's really about identity, fragility, and how we measure our place in the world. What did you think of it, Manon?
Well, it's almost a meditation on masculinity and ego. What happens when a man used to taking up space literally begins to disappear? Visually, you can tell that the director had a lot of fun with scale, but it's the emotional side that stays with you because Dujardin gives one of his most moving performances. And with a budget of over 20 million euros, it's one of the most expensive French films of the year. The crew used a complex motion control system, meaning there's no green screen, but a camera rig that repeats the exact same movement to combine the actor and the oversized set seamlessly. And the result is really impressive. It feels tactile and real. And the film also becomes silent after the first half hour, which is quite bold, though not surprising from Dujardin, who, of course, mastered silence in The Artist.
Of course, The Artist. artist, for which he won an Oscar as well. Now, the film is impressive, not just for its technical prowess.
Not at all. What makes it powerful is how intimate it becomes. Unlike the 1957 version, this one focuses on the man's relationship with his wife and his young daughter, so it's as much about family as it is about survival. And Yann Kounen dedicates the film to Jules Verne and Georges Méliès, a beautiful gesture that ties American imagination back to its French roots. So it's both a tribute to early cinema and a very modern reflection on human fragility.
Well, finally, from the infinitely small to the larger-than-life, Isabelle Huppert is back on the big screen in Thierry Cliffat's La femme la plus riche au monde, or the richest woman in the world. She plays a powerful heiress whose fortune and influence hide some troubling family secrets. It's inspired by L'Oréal heiress Liliane Bettencourt.
The title says it all. It's loosely inspired by the real-life Bettencourt affair, one of France's biggest political and financial scandal. But Cliffat isn't interested in scandal for its own sake. What he really explores here is the legacy of France's great industrial dynasties and how wealth, power, and guilt are passed down through generations.
So it's not just the gossip and glamour, then there's clearly a sense of prestige and style as well.
Absolutely. Her costumes are like a character in themselves. She wears more than 70 different outfits, wow. Each designed to suggest luxury without ever shouting it. So in that way, it's very subtle and very French. And Huppert gives a magnificent performance, vulnerable and unpredictable, and she makes Bettencourt both ridiculous and tragic, a kind of modern King Lear in a designer dress. And the film also raises questions about aging, privilege, and the loneliness of extreme wealth.
Well, it's been described as being like the hit TV series Succession, but à la française. It's definitely different from a classic biopic, a portrait of privilege that's as fascinating as it is unsettling. Manon, thank you so much for guiding us through the best of French cinema this week. We'll leave you with a look at La femme la plus riche du monde. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Vous êtes la femme la plus riche du monde. Ça vous évoque quoi?
Riche, le mot n'est pas très joli. Fortuné, c'est mieux. Jérôme, avec ce bouquet, je ne vois pas Guy, si vous pouviez enlever tout ça. On se croirait à l'aéroport de Honolulu.
Je veux que cette photographie raconte parfaitement la femme que vous êtes.
C'est qui ce photographe?
Pierre-Alain Fantin.
Ce que je veux voir, c'est une héroïne.
Il a une réputation épouvantable.
Je ne photographie pas les gens, je les emporte.
Oh!
Ça vous plaît?
Ah, c'est magnifique.
Allez, virez-moi cette croutasse. Vous n'avez rien à faire là, la bonicherie. Dehors!
Allez, raus!